Okay, breaking down the process of this shot in EEVEE. It's a pretty quick and dirty shot. I'd say about 3, maybe 4 hours of work, but pretty simple. So let's just jump straight in. First, I went to this area in London called Holborn, spelled Holborn, but pronounced
Holborn.
And I used the free app, Polycam, on my phone to scan the corner. It was surrounded by all these new buildings, and I just had a feeling this corner's days were numbered. So I scanned it, and I'll put a link to the model. Hopefully you guys can download it. So I threw it into Blender, and I used a cube and just a little quick boolean to get rid of some of, this sort of lamppost that didn't end up well. I always use fast, apply the boolean, done. Now you can see if I press 1, I want the building facing me, so I just turn it and line it up a little bit. Adjusting the mold, just getting everything square right at the beginning is a good, it just helps when you're building out the scene later on, so that or you know where all your left and right axes are. So it's a good idea to get it more or less square, just to work faster. Next I pull in this old ground scan. It's like quite a nice model. I got it off of Hubert's Patreon. You could use an image with a asphalt texture on it to get the same sort of thing. I prefer these scans, they're a bit more detailed. Yeah, so next I set up the camera, and you really want to do that as early as you possibly can, because with a quick dirty shot like this, you only want to worry about the shit that's going to be in frame. So get that camera set up, settle on the focal length and do the passaportute, the passaportute setting on the side there. Now I'm just building out the street with just the same element. Now I'm using a plane just to get everything straight, level, and I'm using the asset browser. We don't need to use the asset browser. These are free models from Sketchfab. I think I typed in New York building or building. There's literally hundreds of models like this, and they don't need to be that good because they're background sort of thing. So I'm just populating this is a real nice model. It's worth actually shouting out every time. This guy's the best. Art Fletch. He does a bunch of 3D scans around London. I mean, not a ton, loads. They're not all available to download, but all of them are so good. So recommend that guy's models on Sketchfab. So yeah, I'm just lining up the buildings just in a way that looks natural. Okay, so now I'm noticing this little area behind the sign with this sort of pretty bad geometry, and I can't ignore it now. I thought I could get away with that, but I just thought I'd clean it up a little bit, so I'm just selecting some vertices and deleting them, hopefully. There's this little chunk here, and just delete. And then I'm now replacing, just building a little extra detail that the photo scan, I didn't get behind the sign. So just putting legs back on the sign, and you can see I'm trying to fill that hole, and I just decide, actually, don't waste your time. Like, the moment I find myself going deep into little details while we haven't even got to the main stuff yet, it's just like, pull back, forget that, move on. So I know I want a car in there, so I just typed in car into Sketchfab, downloaded one of the first nice ones I've seen. Shout out to this guy right here. It's beautiful, it's a staff pick, pretty much top of the list. So why not download a GTFL? I like these GLBs or whatever they are. What are they? Yeah, GLBs. I like these GLBs, but they do come parented to an empty. So you want to select everything, Alt-P, clear parent, and then start joining the mesh. I mean, that's what I do. I like that they come textured. I don't like that they come parented, but I'd rather just unparent stuff. I solo them and unparent them, as opposed to worrying about textures if I get FBXs and stuff, whatever. I prefer that. I think that's quicker. I could easily be wrong about that. So yeah, then I just get them down to size. And this is really just eyeball. You got to go with your gut and make the car look plausible to your eye. Then I'm just figuring out where I want the lamppost, and it turns out pretty far away. Okay, now it's time to really start blocking it out. So I get a HDRI, go into rendered mode, view, go to the shader editor, go to Underworld, and put in an HDRI. With the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, you press the HDRI Control-T, and that brings up the mapping coordinates, and you can rotate it along the Z-axis and get the reflections looking nice. So I tweak that until it looks good to me. And the strength, I want to, it's a nighttime scene, so don't need much strength. Then I just start putting in more lights. So this is really just a matter of taste, and this is where you have to you get a bit painterly with it, because obviously EEVEE's not the most accurate, but look how quick. I'm not waiting for any render time, nothing. I'm doing this on a laptop, and it's just real time. It's great. So, but you do need to be a little bit more, careful with the lighting. Anyway, I'm happy with how this is looking, but I want a little subject, and I remembered seeing this free animated cat model on Sketchfab, and I've been wanting to use it for years, actually. So I thought this was a perfect excuse, downloaded that, and it's quite big, but I suddenly, for a little while, started entertaining the idea of keeping it like that and doing like a massive cat render. I mean, that's not, a bad idea, but decided against it and thought I'd go with my original plan of putting it on the roof of this car. So I'm just scaling it, getting it in place. And again, it's just eyeballing the scale. I actually think it's a little bit big there, but I do think I scale it down a touch right at the end. Anyway, I'm noticing the shape of the cat is against this white section, but there's this little emo graffiti that's kind of drawing my eye. So I went into the UV editor, well, actually the texture paint, and just pick whipped the color of the white and painted over that. And that just makes the silhouette of the cat a lot clearer. Here I can see that when the cat licks its paws, that's not quite actually touching. So I'm just going into pose mode and selecting the sort of main shoulder arm bone and deleting the keyframes in the area that I think there's some problems, and just reanimating that very simply. Not, you want as few keyframes as, just 3 keyframes there, spaced apart, just to line it up. So that's looking a little bit better to me. And then I just thought this minicab sign could do with some love, so I separated it from the rest of the geometry, and then used the knife tool to cut out this front, bit, and selected that, which actually is a nightmare. But yeah, so then selected that and duplicated the material, and then just plugged in the diffuse into the emission, and then boost the strength and just tweak the saturation. I added a saturation node between that, so it's just a bit more saturated. Next, finally, you've got to do it. It's the volume scatter cube. So just get a big old cube, delete the principled, and just plug a volume scatter in and change the anisotropy. I always put it up and then density down. And that's looking pretty cool. I like, I like how that's looking. So you can see here I'm moving this little area light to kind of simulate the light that would be cast by that emissive texture. That's something you probably wouldn't have to do in cycles, because it would just work. But with EEVEE, you have to kind of massage things along. So that's like a little cheat where you just put an area light in front, You got to just look at the image and try your best to make it look, I don't even want to say real, just pleasing. Okay, next I just make a large plane, subdivide the shit out of it, and this is for collisions. I'm going to put a few newspapers around, and you don't want to use the geometry of the photo scans, they're too dense. So you just use a plane, subdivide it, and then shrink wrap it, but make sure you do the shrink wrap modifier above the collisions modifier. Apply that to, obviously shrink wrap it to the road and apply that. So now it's pretty close, it's like a low poly version. And then you create a plane, subdivide it. This is the classic lazy tutorial newspaper. So soft body, uncheck goal, check self collisions. And then sort out on the ground plane, you want to sort out the inner thickness until it's pretty close. You're never going to get it it'll either be intersecting and glitching or floating. You want to get it as close as you can. And then just pop a little bit of wind and turbulence and tweak. I'm not going to lie and say that this isn't a laborious tweaking. You've got to tweak and tweak and tweak. And it's different every time. But eventually you get newspapers. Now, it's easy to overdo the newspapers, which I think I did slightly on this render, but I went back right at the end and axed a bunch of them, so it's only like 2 or 3 papers. Right, so once that's done, I'm just looping the cat animation, so going into pose mode, pressing A, selecting all the bones, and copy and pasting that final frame at the opening frame, so it just loops. Now I'm using Ian Hubert's Camera Shakerify add-on on the camera, just a bit of movement, and I'm texturing the papers, which I probably should have done straight away. That was stupid. But yeah, and obviously, because of Sod's Law, you have to reproject, so just making sure they're looking vaguely okay. And now, just sorting out the cat texture a bit. There's probably a better way of doing this, but I was just messing around with the roughness a bit and using the diffuse into a bump plugged into the height, and just tweaking that little bit, just so there's some extra detail. I know the cat's going to be pretty soft anyway, because I'm going to be softening this way up, but just want to add a little bit of detail, and I put a bit of subsurface scattering and plugged that into the factor and just messed around. You can see just doing something that looks, slightly better to the eye. I don't know, just making little changes until it looks better, just tweaking little bits, just going with your instinct. Okay, so now I'm just sorting out the depth of field, and sometimes what I like to do is just create an empty sphere and have the camera be looking at that as the focus object and move that sphere around a little bit organically, so that there's a sense that someone's trying to pull focus, or the camera's autofocus is trying to focus. I think if you just have locked focus, it can feel a little bit dead. And yeah, just tweaking the f-stop so it's not too intense. And I'm liking how this looks. Final cherry on top is always bugs, if you can put them in. So this is the classic, just a card with a few bugs on the front, and plug the color into the, make sure its cyclic is checked, and you plug the color into the alpha. And I decided I didn't like, I was looking good, but I didn't like the ones on top, so I just cut that little plane off. And so they're only kind of below. For some reason that felt better. And I think that's it. I press F12 and check, and it turns out all my collision objects are still rendering, so I decheck render, and there we go. It's looking fine. So I just decide, let's do it. Yeah, so I click render, and there it goes. Open up After Effects, right-click, import multiple files, go to the pictures, select, Control-A, select all, then check PNG sequence. This box reopens for no reason, press done, right-click, interpret footage, drop it to whatever your frame rate was. It's going to be 30 by default. If it is 30, don't change. Then I'll just show you quickly what I do. It's, this is an optional process. I've got Dehancer plugin. I just tweak around the settings there. You can look at the settings, slow it down if you really want to see, but it would be different for every shot. Then I'm chucking a bulge on it. Now, I know this can be done in Blender, but it's with EEVEE, you've got to do it in the compositor, and it's just slightly laborious. So I'm doing it with After Effects, but I noticed that I don't quite have, it changes the framing a little too much. I don't quite have the edge space on the original render. So quick tweak, not too difficult, hop back into Blender, just zoom out a touch, and then I decide I kind of want that light flickering, so I quickly put a keyframe on the power, open up the graph editor, and then just use a noise modifier. No, I don't do that. I decide I don't want it flickering the whole time, so I decide to just do it by hand, just on and off, just a couple flickers. Render that slightly wider version, and then now the bulge, I can still bulge it, but you're still getting the top of the sign, and the framing is closer to the, you get the deal. So then I'm chucking on Dehancer, just levels, bringing the highlights up a touch. This is all just tweaking to my liking. The final thing that I like to do, instead of using halation in Dehancer, it's just cheeky, this. So with the final comp, I duplicate it, I channel blur, I put a channel blur on it, and I blur the red channel to 22. and drop its opacity to 44 and then change the blend mode to lighten. And you can see there it just blurs the red channel a bit and gives you those kind of nice halated edges. I mean, it's becoming a little cliche, that look, but it's still quite nice. Anyway, there it is. Quick and tidy render, and pretty fun and easy. So EEVEE gets a bad rap, but I think it's fantastic. I like the speed I can work at. Cycles is, I'm not going to deny Cycles is beautiful, but man, just I can't work at that speed. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, hope you got something from it, and take her easy.